Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our general mathematics class. I am your tutor, Kevin Vicente Razalan. So under our subject, the following are the topic to be discussed. So first, pag-aaralan natin kung ano nga ba ang functions, on how to represent real-life situation using functions. Next is evaluating functions. Dito matututo tayo on how to evaluate functions or solve. Next is the operations on functions. Dito naman ma-encounter natin yung different operations on functions. Next is solving real-life problems involving functions. So, mga real-life problems yan. Next is the rational functions, equations, and inequalities. So, this time, we will going to relate the rational function, equation, and inequalities into real-life situation. Next is solving rational equations and inequalities. So dito matututo kayo on how to solve rational equations and inequalities. Next is the presentations of rational functions, the domain and range of rational functions, the intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of rational functions, and the solving real-life problems involving rational functions, equations, and inequalities. Okay, the module 1, which is the functions. So dito muna tayo magfo-focus. So under functions, expect na pag-aaralan natin what is a function, what is a relation, the dependent and independent variable, function as a machine, the domain and range, and then the vertical line test, including the piecewise function. Okay, try to reflect in this quotation. So the only way to learn mathematics is to do mathematics. So I want you to help yourself kung paano mahalin ang ating subject na math. So sabi natin dito, the only way to learn mathematics is to do mathematics or apply mathematics in our real life. Next, what is a relation? So sabi natin, a relation is any set of ordered pairs. The set of all elements, the set of all first elements of the ordered pairs is called the domain of the relation. And the set of all the second elements is called the range. So lagi nating tatanda na pag sinabi nating relation, it is in a set of ordered pairs containing the domain, which is the first element in the ordered pairs, and then the range, which is the second element in our set of ordered pairs. And this is the presentations or representations of the relation. So sabi natin sa ating relation, it is a relationship between two values. So dito sa graph na ito, this is the two values, the first circle and then the second circle. And then sabi pa dito, the function is a relation where each input has only one output. So ibig sabihin, partner sila. One input and one output. And then under relation, we have the functions and not functions. So, mahati yung two types ng relation, which is the function. Under functions, we have the one-to-one relations and then the many-to-one relations. Next is the not function. Under not functions, we have the one-to-many relations and then the many-to-many relations. So kung napapansin natin sa ating one-to-one functions or relations, so kung napapansin natin, bawat isa dito sa ating x values or the domain ay may kakibat na partner sa kanyang output or the range. So again, ito yung ating domain and then this is the range. Next is the many-to-one relation. So paano naman dito? So kung titignan natin, in this range, the domain, mayroon silang dalawang relation dito sa ating output or the range. So si 2, partner niya is si 4. Si negative 2, partner din niya si 4. So that is what we call the many to one relation. And next is the one to many relation. So isa sa maraming relation. So parang ito, yung ating 9. Yung 9 natin, dalawa yung kanyang partner sa kanyang range which is the 3 and negative 3. And then we have the many-to-many relation. Dito naman, maramihan sa maramihan. So 3, 5, and then 3, 6. Next is the 2, 4, and then the 1, 4. So now ulit dito na ginamit si 4 and then si 3. Next, what is a function? So when we say function, a function is a relation or rule of correspondence between two elements. So yung two elements na yon, we have the domain and range. So pag sinabi nating domain, it is the x values or the input, and then the range is the second element in the ordered pairs or the y values or what we call the range, such that each element in the domain corresponds to exactly one element in the range. So yan, tignan natin yung ating example. So sabi natin sa ating function, yung domain natin ay iisa lang dapat at walang mauulit. So tignan natin yung ating for set. Okay, we have for set which is the set A, set B, set C, and set D. Okay, yung ating set A, is it a function or not function? So, nasaan ba dito yung ating domain? So, lagi nating tatandaan na yung ating domain ay yung first element sa ating ordered pairs. So, ito yung mga yon. 1, 2, and then the 3, and 4. And then the range is the 2 or the second element in the ordered pairs which is the 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, kung titignan natin, ito ba ay function or not function? So, yung letter A natin is an example of function. So, bakit? Tignan natin yung ating first element or the domain which is the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, walang naulit. Therefore, it is a function. And then B, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 6, 6. This is an example of function since the domain is not repeated. So how about the set C? We have the set 1A, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and then 0, negative 1. So ano yung naulit? Yung ating domain na 0. So this is not a function. So how about in set D? AB, BC, CD, and AD. So this is not a function since the domain A ay naulit. So ganun lang yung ating function. Next is, okay, ito yung example ng ating function. So function and not function. So pansinin natin yung ating example. Doon sa ating letter A. Again, this first circle is what we call the domain or the x values. And then this one is the range or the y values. So yung letter A natin, is it a function or not function? Yung letter A natin is an example of function. So how about the letter B? Is it a function or not function? This is an example of not function since yung letter A natin, kung mapapansin natin, is dalawa. Dalawang relation which is the A, Q, and AR. So how about the letter C? Is it a function or not function? Okay, this is an example of a function since walang naulit sa ating domain. Next is the letter D. Is it function or not function? So the answer is function since it is an example of one-to-one relation. So walang naulit sa ating domain. Next, function as a machine. So sabi natin, function can illustrated as a machine where there is the input and then the output. When you put an object into a machine, you expect a product as output after the process being done by the machine. So like for example, when you put an orange fruit into a juicer, you expect an orange juice as the output and not a grape juice, or you will never expect to have two kinds of juices, which is the orange and grapes. So this is an example of a function as a machine. So we have the input. So ano yung input natin? Yung input natin is the x values and then the output is the y values. So dito sa ating input, this is an independent variable. And then yung output natin is a dependent variable. Nakadepende siya sa ating input. So pag pinasok natin yung orange fruit dito, ang lalabas ay magiging juice. At yun lang, orange flavor. So hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin na kapag pinasok natin sa orange, ang lalabas ay grapes. So hindi po. So dito na nakapaloob yung ating tinatawag na definition ng function. So hindi pwedeng maulit ang ating input or ang ating domain or the x values. So pag sinabi nating domain, ito yung ating input values. And then the range is the output values. Next, a vertical line test. So, bakit natin kailangan pag-aralan ang vertical line test? So, anong gamit ng vertical line test? So, a relation between two sets of numbers can be illustrated by graph in the Cartesian plane and that a function passes the vertical line test. So, mahalagang magamit natin yung vertical line test in order to identify either the graph of a Cartesian plane is a function or not function. So sabi natin, a graph of a relation is a function if any vertical line drawn passing through the graph intersects it at exactly one point. So kapag ginamit natin si vertical line test, dapat nag-intersect sa isang point para malaman natin kung yung graph ng relation is a function or not a function. So let's try to look in our example. Okay, sorry, that is not a function as a machine. Okay? Dito pansin natin yung ating graph. So itong line na ito yung tinatawag natin na vertical line test. Itong mga ito. So pansinin natin yung ating number 1 graph, which is a parabolic graph. So tinawag ito na function. So the answer here is function since kung mapapansin natin pag drawing natin yung ating vertical line is nag-intersect sa isang point. Next is a function also. So nag-intersect sa ating 1 point dito. Next is a function also. Kasi nag-intersect sa ating 1 point dyan. And then the example number 4, yung circle na graph. So hindi siya function. Since kapag drawing natin yung vertical line, magkakaroon ng two intersecting points. So yan. First intersection point and then dito naman sa kabila. Next. How about this one? This is an example of not a function. So katulad lang din siya ng ating circle sa graph. Na kapag dinowing natin yung si vertical line test, nag-i-intersect sa dalawang point. Yan, isa dyan and dito. Okay, ganun lang yung gamit ng ating vertical line test para malaman natin kung yung graph ng ating relation is a function or not function. Next. Oops, wait lang. Next is the piecewise function. So pag sinabi nating piecewise function in graphically, it is from the root word piece. So pag sinabi nating piece, piraso. And then a piecewise functions are pieces of different functions graphed together on the same coordinate plane. And then each of these pieces is defined on a different domain or dx intervals, and graphs are not continuous. So dito sa ating definition ng piecewise function in graphically, from the word piece, so piraso, it means the graph are not continuous. So example sa ating piecewise function graphically. So ito yung example ng ating piecewise function kapag graph natin. Ibig sabihin marami siya. So this is one plotted or one function. Next is isang function din ito. And then ganun din dito. Next, ganun din dito sa ating graph na ito. And yan, kung napapansin natin, marami sa isang Cartesian plane, maraming function. And this is an example of a piecewise function graphically. Next, how about a piecewise function in algebraically? So when functions are defined by more than one equation, they are called piecewise defined functions. So each equation is different piece. So ito yung example ng ating piecewise function algebraically. So yung kaninang una, ang ginawa doon na illustration ay pag-graph ng piecewise function. So dito naman is a piecewise function in algebraically. So like for example, we have a problem and solution. So we have a piecewise function. So this is an illustration of a piecewise function. So sabi natin kanina from the word piece, it is a many functions. So we have three functions here. The f of x is equal to 8 if x is less than -4. And then the second function is the f of x is equal to -2x if the value of x is greater than or equal to -4 but less than or equal to 2. And then the third function is the f of x is equal to 5x minus 10 if x is greater than 2. So we have a given here or a problem solving. So find f of 1, f of -5, f of -3, and f of -4. So paano nga ba mag-solve ng piecewise function? So tignan natin dito yung ating f of 1. So si f of 1, nasaan kaya siya dito? Saan kaya siya tatama or saan or aling function ang ating gagamitin? So tignan natin si 1. So itong 1 na ito, substitute natin sa value ng ating x dito. Okay, kapag sinubstitute natin si 1 dito, so 1 is less than -4. So tama ba o hindi? So si 1 ba ay mas maliit kay -4? So mali. So hindi natin pwedeng gamitin si f of x is equal to 8. Next, kung isasubstitute natin si 1 dito, 1 is greater than or equal to -4. So si 1 daw ay mas malaki sa -4. So tama. But less than or equal to 2. So tama ba? Hindi. So tama. So si 1 is less than 2 kasi mas malaki si 2. Therefore, ang gagamitin nating function is f of x is equal to -2x. So the solution in the f of 1, since tama ito, So, ang gagamitin natin is the f of x is equal to negative 2x. So, yung f of 1 is equal to negative 2x. Yung value ng ating x is 1. So, substitute natin dito sa value ng x. So, negative 2 times 1 is equal to negative 2. Therefore, kapag sinubstitute natin si negative 2 dito, negative 2 is greater than or equal to negative 4 but less than or equal to 2. So, tama ang ating equation. Next, so how about the f of 5? F of negative 5. So, si negative 5, itest natin ulit. So, substitute natin dito sa value ng ating x. So, negative 5 is less than negative 4. So, tama ba? Yes. So, ang gagamitin natin na equation ay f of x is equal to 8. Therefore, the solution is f of negative 5 is equal to 8. So, tama. Ito yung ating answer. F of negative 5 is equal to 8. Next, the f of 3. So, yung f of 3 natin, tignan natin yung value ng ating 3. Substitute natin ulit sa ating mga x. So, kapag sinubstitute natin yung 3 dito, 3 is less than negative 4. So, mali. Next, substitute natin si 3 dito. So, 3 is greater than negative 4. So, tama. But less than 2 or equal to 2. So, mali. Next, 3 is greater than 2. So, tama. Ang gagamitin nating function is the f of x is equal to 5x minus 10. So, ito yung gagamitin nating formula kay f of 3. Therefore, the solution is f of 3 is equal to 5x minus 10. So, substitute natin si 3. So, 5 times 3 minus 10. So, 5 times 3 is 15 minus 10 is equal to 5. Therefore, the answer in f of 3 is 5. Next, last, the f of negative 4. So, itest natin ulit si negative 4. So, kapag sinubstitute natin sa negative 4 dito, negative 4 is less than negative 4. So, si negative 4 daw ay mas maliit kay negative 4. So, mali. Next, negative 4 is greater than or equal to negative 4. So, tama. But less than or equal to 2. Tama. So, ang gagamitin natin is the f of x is equal to negative 2x. Kung itetest naman natin dito, si negative 4 is greater than 2. So, mali. Kaya ang gagamitin natin yung ating second function. The f of x is equal to negative 2x. Therefore, the solution is f of negative 4 is equal to negative 2x. Substitute natin si negative 4 sa value ng ating x. Negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. So, the answer is 8. So, ganun lang yung ating gagawin kapag nagsasolve tayo ng piecewise function. Kapag binigyan ka ng ganitong problem, yung nasa loob ng ating f of x or the value ng x, ito, substitute nyo lang sa hinahanap or dito. Para malaman nyo kung alin ang gagamitin nyo. Kung ito bang function na ito, or ito, or ito. Ang gagawin nyo lang, substitute nyo lang yung value ng hinahanap ninyo dito. Halimbawa ito kanina, itong mga ito. So, ganun lang yung gagawin natin kapag mag-solve ng piecewise function. Next, real-life situation using piecewise function. So, i-relate naman natin si piecewise function sa ating real-life situation. Okay, like for example, number 1. A certain chocolate bar costs 35 pesos per piece. So, bawat yung chocolate bar daw, bawat isang chocolate bar ay nagkakahalaga ng 35 pesos. However, if you buy more than 10 pieces, they will be marked down to a price of 32 pesos per piece. So, sabi dito, kahit papaano, kung bibili ka daw ng higit sa 10 piraso na chocolate bar, ay magma-markdown sila ng presyo or ibababaan nila yung presyo at gagawin nilang 32 pesos kada isang piraso ng chocolate bar. Ngayon, use a piecewise function to represent the cost in terms of the number of chocolate bars bought. So, gagawin natin ay piecewise function to represent kung ilan yung cost natin in terms sa bilang ng bibilihing chocolate. Therefore, let's say C, okay, sabihin natin na si C is for the cost, yung bayad. And then the N is stand for the number of chocolates. Therefore, the function is C of N is equal to unknown. So, hanapin pa natin yung condition. Now, let's find the condition to complete the function. So, hanapin natin ngayon yung function kung mapapansin natin dito na yung sa ating problem ay madi-divide sa dalawang condition. At ito yon. So, ito yung ating function, C of N. Yung C natin is yung chocolate and then the N is the number of chocolate na bibilhin. Okay, sabi dito sa ating condition number 1, magbabayad ka daw ng 35 pesos if, ito, yung N natin is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 10. So, bakit ito yung ating formula? So, kung mapapansin natin, sabi natin kanina dito, a chocolate bar costs 35 pesos per piece. So, kada piraso daw, isang piraso ay 35 pesos. Pero may condition dito. Kapag lumagpas daw ng 10, ang presyo na lang ng bawat isang chocolate bar ay 32 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, kapag magbabayad ka ng 35 pesos, yung bilang dapat na bibilhin mong chocolate ay 1 hanggang 10. So, ito yung ating formula. So, yung N natin dito, so like for example, gawin nating 1. So, 1 is greater than 0. So, tama nga naman, mas malaki si 1. Pero, si 1 ay mas mababa kay 10. Okay, ito yung ating formula. Again, 35 pesos. 35 pesos yung babayaran natin kapag yung value ng N natin ay lalagpas sa 0 pero hindi lalagpas sa 10. So, hanggang 10 lang yung ating dapat bibilhin na chocolate kung magbabayad tayo ng 35 pesos. Next, 32 pesos naman kapag, sabi dito, 32 pesos if the value of N is greater than 10. So, yung value ng N natin, ano ba yung N natin ulit? Ito yung number ng chocolate na bibilhin. So, kapag yung value ng N natin ay lalagpas sa 10, ang babayaran natin ay 32 pesos. And therefore, ito na yung ating function, piecewise function dito sa ating number 1 problem. Okay, another example. Sabi dito, a school's fair committee wants to sell T-shirts for their school fair. So, yung school fair committee daw nila ay gustong magtinda ng T-shirt para sa kanilang gagawing school fair. Ngayon, they found a supplier that sells T-shirt at a price of 175 pesos a piece. So, nakahanap daw sila ng supplier na nagkakahalaga ng T-shirt sa presyong 175 pesos kada isa. Pero, sabi dito, may condition. Magcha-charge ng 15,000 pesos for a bulk order of 100 shirts. and 125 pesos for each excess t-shirt after that. Now use a piecewise function to represent the cost in terms of the number of t-shirt purchased. So again, nakahanap sila ng supplier na ang presyo ng damit kada piraso ay 175 pesos. So yun yung isang condition natin. And then next is 15,000 pesos naman daw ang babayaran sa isahang order na lang. Kapag nag-order ka daw ng isang set ng t-shirt, which is the 100 shirt, so kapag 100 daw na damit, ay magbabayad ka na lang ng 15,000 pesos. And then the last condition, kapag sumobra ka naman sa 100 na piraso ng damit, ay magkakaroon ka ng babayaran na dagdag, which is 125 pesos kada isang t-shirt kapag lumagpas ka. Ngayon, gagamitin daw natin ay piecewise function para malaman natin kung paano natin babayaran or ano yung mga condition natin gagawin. So the function is, ayan, C of n, hindi to C. Ay, tama pala. Kasi yung C natin is cost in terms of the number. So, which is the n. So, C of n. So, ito yung gagamitin nating symbol ng ating function. To find the cost in terms of the number of t-shirt purchase. So, the first condition is, ayan, 175 pesos. If, ayun daw. So, 175 pesos times n if the value of n is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 99 t-shirt. So sabi natin kanina dito sa ating 175 pesos, ang bayad ng isa. So hindi dapat tayo lalagpas or hindi dapat mag-equal to 100 yung ating t-shirt. Kasi kapag 100 t-shirt ay magbabayad ka na ng 15,000 kasi isang order na yon. So magbabayad ka lang ng 175 pesos. So ito, magbabayad ka lang ng 175 pesos kapag yung bilang ng t-shirt natin ay hindi lalagpas sa 99. So hanggang 99 lang dapat yung piraso ng t-shirt na bibilihin mo kung gusto mong 175 pesos na lang yung babayaran mo kada isa. Kaya ang ginamit natin dito is 175 pesos times n. So yung n doon is yung bilang ng t-shirt na bibilihin mo. So ano yung value ng n doon? Yung value ng n natin doon is from 1 to 99 t-shirt. Bakit? Kasi dito na pumapasok yung ating second condition, which is 15,000 pesos. If n is equal to 100. So kapag yung bilang daw ng ating t-shirt ay 100 na piraso, ang babayaran na lang natin is 15,000 pesos. Next condition is the 15,000 plus 125 times n minus 100 if n is greater than 100. So bakit naman ganito yung ating third example or function? Kasi sabi natin na kapag lumagpas na ng bilang na 100 or kapag lumagpas na sa 100 yung ating t-shirt na bibilihin, is magdadagdag ng 125 pesos. Depende sa bilang ng t-shirt na ating bibilhin. So, bakit minus 100? Kasi yung value ng n natin doon is 101, 102, 103, and etc. So, ito yung ating third function. And therefore, the answer in the number 2 is ito na yung ating tatlong function, which is the C of n is equal to 175 pesos times n if n is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 99, and C of n is equal to 15,000 pesos if n, or the number of t-shirts, is equal to 100, and then the C of n is equal to 15,000 plus 125 times n minus 100 if n is greater than 100. So, ganun lang yung ating gamit ng piecewise function sa real-life situations. At kung mapapansin nyo, anong kahalagaan ng piecewise function? So, matutulungan tayo ng piecewise function kung paano i-solve ang bawat problem kung makaka-encounter tayo ng mga iba't ibang condition kapag bibili tayo ng mga damit na mayroong mga pagpipilian sa ating buyer. Okay, that's conclude for our discussion. So kapag may tanong kayo, comment nyo na lang, and then we will discuss it in our group chat. So thank you for listening.